Okay, good evening. This is Unit 8A, Lesson 2, Day 1 video about slope. So our learning targets: I can determine the slope of a line from 2 points, an equation, a table, a graph, a word problem. You can also recognize that a mathematical slope is the rate of change in a real-world problem that includes appropriate units. So let's get some definitions here. The slope of a non-vertical line, non-vertical, is the ratio of the vertical change, which is also called the rise, to the horizontal change, which is called the run, between any 2 points on the line. So the slope is the ratio between the vertical change and the horizontal change, the rise over the run, between any 2 points. The slope in math of a line is represented by the letter M. So the letter M represents the slope. So finding slope from a graph. M, that's slope, so slope is the vertical change over the horizontal change, which is the same as saying the rise over the run. So for number 1, we want to find out the slope of this line. So I'm going to start at this point. It's the rise over the run. So how do I go? I have to go up 1, 2. So I go up 2, that's the rise, and I go over 1, that's the run. So up 2, that's the 2 on the top, the vertical change. Over 1 is the horizontal change. 2 over 1, we're going to simplify to 2. So the slope is 2. And this is a positive slope. Positive 2 is a positive slope. So it looks like it's going uphill. That's a positive slope. Keep that in mind. Here's a you try for number 2. You guys try that at home or in class. Number 3. What do I notice difference between number 1 and 3? Well, this is uphill. This line looks like it's going downhill. Going that way. Downhill, I should have a negative slope. So let's see if it works out. We could write some things. We could say rise over run. If you want to write that a couple times, hopefully you remember that. So what's the rise? When I start at this point, how do I get to this point? I want to start at the left and go to the right. So we want to do the up and down first. Do I go up? No, I have to go down. So I'm going to call that a negative 1. So a negative 1. I go down 1, that's negative, and then I go over 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 4. So negative 1 over 4, we could just say that's negative 1/4. That negative sign either goes on the top, out in front, or just on the bottom. So I decided I got to go down 1 here, and then over 4. We want to start at the left and go to the right. How do I get from this point to this point? I go down 1, that's my negative 1, over 4. Negative 1/4 for the slope. M is the slope. Once again, that's downhill. We should expect a negative slope. If I didn't get negative, I knew I did something wrong. So you have a you try for number 4. You guys try that, come in with some questions. So we can also do slope from 2 points. Okay, there's no line. There's 2 points here. We're going to do the slope. So the slope is the rise over the run. Whoops, off. So the rise over the run. So what's my rise? When I go from this point to this point, how far do I go up? 0. I don't go up anything. What's my run? Horizontal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 over 5. Anything divided by 0? 0 divided by anything is 0. Okay? And this is an important point. That slope is 0. And what kind of line is this? It's a horizontal line. Any horizontal line will have a 0 slope. Key point. Number 6, you guys can try. It's not a horizontal line, looks like a vertical line. I'm going to give you one little hint. If I had something like 2 over 0, well, what is that? Well, 0 over 5 is 0. We put that on the calculator, we get that. If I put 2 over 0, if I do it on my calculator and say 2 divided by 0, I get an error. Divide by 0. You can never divide by 0 in math. This really means undefined. So if you get something like that, that's a hint for number 6. You guys try that, and we'll talk about it tomorrow in class. So we found slope from a graph. Now we can find slope from 2 points. So if I just give you 2 points, we can find the slope. No graph. Once again, m is the slope. It's a vertical change over the horizontal change. A little different formula here, we can do it. Vertical change is really y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And these little 2's and 1's, they're called subscripts. That just differentiates one y from another y. I'm going to show you how to do that. So, I have these 2 ordered pairs on number 7. This is an x and a y. Well, I'm going to call this one x1, and that's y1. This ordered pair, I'll say it's x2, comma, y2. Okay? So my slope, m, equals, I'm going to write it out, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Write it out a couple times and you'll remember it. So what's my y2? y2 is right here. Negative 1. That's my y2. What's my y1? Right here, 6. Minus 6. Okay, on the bottom, I have x2. My x2 is negative 2 minus x1, which is 4. So minus 4. And then we just simplify this. We can do it on our calculator, or negative 1 minus 6 is a negative 7. Negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6. I have 2 negative signs in here. They cancel each other out. So this slope is really 7 over 6. Okay, slope is 7 over 6. And we could call these pairs either, if this is x1, this is y1. If I wanted to, I could call this x1 and y1. But then this is x2 and y2. It'll still work out. So you guys got a bunch of you tries. You try 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. See what you come up with. And remember, once again, if you get something that you can't, with 0 on the bottom, it's undefined. You can have an undefined slope. If you get a 0 slope, that means it's a horizontal line. Okay? So now we found slope from 2 points. We can find slope from a table. We're going to use our same formula. M is the slope. It's the vertical change over horizontal change. That's all slope is. And it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Same formula. So they give me a table, and I can just name these points. Well, if this is my x, I could say that this one point here is x1. Well, that would make this y1. This would be x2 and y2. I could pick any one of these pairs for this. I'm going to pick the first 2. So this first one's going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. So the slope, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Whoops. I'm going to do it down here. So my y2, put it equal. y2 is 1. 1 minus y1, which is negative 3. It's minus a negative 3. Got to use parentheses there. All over x2, which is negative 1, minus, what's x1? Negative 3. Remember, same change, right? So this turns into a positive, positive. So it's 1 plus 3, which is 4. Negative 1 plus 3 is a 2. 4 over 2 is just 2. So the slope over here is 2. And once again, I could choose this as my x2, y2. It will still work out. Go ahead and try that if you want. But if you choose this as x2, this has to be y2. You just got to keep these pairs together. You could do this x1, y1, x2, y2. Whatever pair you want to choose. So we got a couple U tries, 14 and 15. You guys try. We could scratch that off. Okay. So there's 14 and 15. Try them at home or try them in class tomorrow. So now we can find the slope from an equation. So we're going to use our graphing calculator for each of the following. So I'm going to use the table function to complete the table. So I'm going to enter my y equals. Scroll up the equal sign, make sure there's nothing in. I'm going to enter this. 2x minus 5. So I entered that. I'm going to use my table function, second and graph. So there's my table function, and I can use whatever ones I want. Let's scroll down and maybe we'll just use the positive ones, or 0. We'll start with 0. We can choose whatever ones. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, at 0, we get negative 5. Negative 3 for 1. At 2, you get negative 1. At 3, you get a positive 1. At 4, you get 3. So I just got that right off of my table. Okay. And now I'm going to find, now it says use the table to find the slope. So let's try some different pairs. Let's say this is x1, so it makes that y1. I'll let this one be x2, y2. Once again, you can use any of the pairs. You just got to keep them together. So my slope, m, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Write that down a couple times and we'll remember it. So y2 is a y. y2 is 3 minus y1, so up here, minus a negative 3 over x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 1. 3 minus a negative 3, which changes to a positive. So I get 6 over 3, which is just 2. So I get 2 for the slope. Okay? And now, this part C says, how does the slope, so how does 2 compare to the equation? How does 2 compare to the equation? Do we notice anything? Well, I'm going to say 2 is the coefficient of x in the equation. I found that the slope was 2 and that equation had a 2 in front of the x. Okay, number 18, you guys try. See what you get. Use the table, punch it in, do the slope, answer C. Tonight or tomorrow in class. So now, without graphing, name the slope of the line represented by each equation. So hopefully you guys did this one up here. Maybe you tried it at home, or the slope is actually going to be this number, whoops, in front of the x. So just, this wasn't a coincidence. Because I found 2 is the slope, 2 is the number in front of the x. So, for this equation, I'm going to be able to say the slope is 5. And that really comes from an equation that is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, and B is the y intercept. Oops. Sorry. M is the slope, y is the B is the y intercept. So when I look at this equation here, 19, y equals 5x plus 4, the slope is 5x. You guys try these, and we'll talk about those in class. Number 23, we're going to have that as a U-try. It says find, explain, so we got to find. Number 2, explain, and then 3, correct the error. Okay, so we got to find this error. They said find the slope of this line. Well, check. John did this. He said the slope was 21 minus 6, which is 15 over 14 minus 4, which is 10. See if he did that right. You guys try that at home tonight, okay? Try this one at home. At home. Try that. Try and explain the error. If you find an error, try and correct the error. Tomorrow we'll try this one in class. And this is a U-try also that we'll try in class. So a U-try. Okay? Have a good night. We'll see you in class tomorrow.